I love that. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So just repeating that rituals are a huge part of community, right? And that like different tribes and different walks of life and different religions all have these rituals that unite them. Yeah, very true.
Has anyone ever done a sweat lodge or a temescal? I just did one at our retreat in Tulum, and it was so hard, first of all. Second of all, it just reminded me things that I don't really think about in my day-to-day life, because it was this local shaman in Mexico, her and her partners that were putting the sweat lodge on. And they have a very specific way they do it. They have rituals. And it's not the same to them if they don't do it in the specific way that their shaman leaders taught them, right? They handed it down. So from the way they carry in the wood, what they use to carry in the fire, the way they tap the bowl of water before they bring it in, the way you enter into the sweat lodge and you have to like thank the earth and kiss the ground. Every single part, to the way you sit, to the way you hold yourself, to how long you're supposed to be in there and not leave. The songs they sing, the ritual, it's such a reminder of the different rituals that we can create that then create more magic. If we just went into the sweat lodge and we're like, let's sweat, it's just different. But the rituals that they use, the things they said, the way that you felt the intention behind every single thing they did, that's ritual.
That's what makes it sacred.
Yeah.
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 Kind of spiritual. Like there's a lot of things that are routine.
Exactly.
There's something, maybe spiritual is the word. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Sacred. Spiritual.
Sacred. And it
Yeah.
can be whatever it is to you. That's the thing about this, is it's you. It's your own ritual with yourself. So to you, it might be spiritual. To me, it may be sacred. To someone else, it might be special. Doesn't matter. It's that there's an element of specialness to it that's different than just a normal routine or a normal habit we do.
Yeah. And we actually talked about that, like the difference between a ritual and a routine, right? Because the way I sort of classify it in my mind is like a ritual to me is something that I get to do. You know, just simply put.
I had rituals versus routines, and I wrote down different types of well-being rituals. They're different they're more meaningful than routines because of the intention behind them, right? So the intention we bring to something changes it. And then some things that I wrote down, what is a ritual? I said an anchor, a reminder. So just as when I was in the Temescal, I was reminded of the 4 elements of nature. I was like on the ground, sweaty, snotty, like it was disgusting. And also the most beautiful remembrance that we are of the earth. We die with the earth, we come from the earth, right? So a remembrance. Rituals can remind us of who we are, our best selves, who we're meant to be. When we strip away all the layers that we built, like Sammy said earlier, with like, we're unlearning, it's a way to re-remember. I said a ritual is wisdom. It's a moment. It's a labor of love, right? We get to do it.
Yeah.
It's a labor of love. Like the way you move in yoga with intention versus like moving in a workout class. And you can bring intention to that workout, but having someone there to guide you through that labor of love makes it spiritual. I also wrote down presence.
Yeah, I think that's a big difference between a routine and a ritual is the gift of your attention, like the intentionality behind actually doing it. I think it's also really interesting because I'm Jewish and it was just the Jewish New Year, and you know, my whole life growing up, my dad like forced us to go to synagogue, and I never wanted to go. And because I was forced, right? I said earlier, I'm totally like the one, don't control me. And this year, having my own family, I chose to go because it was a ritual that was cultivated when I was growing up, right? And it shifted, right? So I think it's also really interesting that there's certain things like routines that can become rituals. And I really believe that the difference lies in how you're thinking about it, the presence that you're giving to it.
The choice.
The choice.
Like we talked about in the beginning. Now she's choosing to go.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think about even like walking my dog in the morning, which is something I have to do, right? So it can be part of that routine, but I love that I get to do it. So it's a ritual. And any of those days where I'm like super rushed and I'm like, oh, I have to take her, are always the days she takes the longest. Like always, right? And so it's like, okay, what's the intention behind it, right? How can we make this special? How do we get to make this special? And it's a choice. And, you know, I think as part of this workshop, we want to have you guys think through, like, what does a ritual mean to you? But also, what are you doing that's part of your routine that you can make into a ritual, right? Because it's like we're all busy, and yes, there may be things like every year that you do, you know, like I just described, or things like that. But on a daily basis, how can you have your mornings, your evenings, your midday be just a little bit more sacred, spiritual, intentional, special?
Does anyone like to cook? Do you listen to music? Keep your hands up. Are you on your phone the whole time, or are you like present? Right? You're present. The difference between rushing to make a meal for a kid or...
There's the dog I was just talking about.
Oh, that dog. Hi. The difference between rushing through something and doing it because you have to versus because you want to. Like when I put my phone in a different room and make my kids dinner, and I put music on, and I'm just vibing and pouring my love into the food, it's such a different experience for everyone. When they eat it, they feel it, they're in the process. It's a ritual versus the thing I have to do because they're hungry and I'm the mom. Mm-hmm. Right? And sometimes it is that. Sometimes I'm on a call and I make frozen food and I'm like, love you. And they're fine. That's fine. But it's not going to feel sacred.
So inviting you guys to, as we sort of describe this and share from our own personal examples, to pull out your journal and just think about what's something in your life that you're currently doing as a routine. Maybe it's something that you're doing daily, maybe it's something that you're doing weekly, that you can add a little bit of intentionality to, that you can potentially make into a ritual. And it could be the example I gave, walking your dog. It could be cooking for yourself, your family. It could be something else entirely. But taking a few minutes now to think through, like, what's part of your daily, weekly, monthly routine that could use a little secret sauce or, you know, like sparkle. And the purpose here is, like, everybody's busy. Everybody has a full life. So it's like, what can we just shift perspectives on and recognize that, oh, actually, I get to do this. I don't have to do this. I get to do this. I get to make food for my kids. I get to walk my dog.
And if this at all feels overwhelming, just knowing that you can start with something very small. So maybe it's the cup of coffee you make in the morning. Now you put music on and your phone's away for 4 minutes. And it's your ritual to spend time with yourself. And then maybe down the road that extends into actually sipping the coffee slowly and letting that be part of the ritual. We don't have to change everything at once. We shouldn't, actually.
Maybe it can be something as simple as, like, when you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing that you think of? Right? So we're all waking up every morning, hopefully for a very long time, and we all put our feet on the ground. We're fortunate enough to have roofs over our head and sleep in beds. What's that first thought? Is it all the things you have to do? Is it all the ways you have to help other people? Is it what you didn't do the day before? And so what if we invited that thought to be a ritual? I am enough. I am perfect. Today is going to be great.
Yeah, you can even daydream in that moment about what the day will feel like, what it'll look like, play by play. Focusing mostly on what it feels like and what energy you're bringing, that intention for your day. And this is really where you get to be your own guru, right? We talked about us not being your gurus, a book not being your guru, anything. You are your own guide. So tuning into, oh, these are some habits that I actually enjoy doing. I do them all the time. What if I just added that little bit of sparkle and intention and love and sacredness to it? And now it's a ritual versus just a thing I do.
Yeah, and only you know what you want to add that extra thing to. You know, everyone's mornings are different. Maybe there's some elements of them that are the same. You know, when we were talking about this workshop, I was like, oh, actually, I love my skincare routine in the morning and putting on my makeup. Like, I love clean beauty and supporting amazing brands. And so that is a ritual to me. You know, that's something that, like, I really like to take 10 minutes every morning to do, and I put on a podcast or a song. And like any days that I'm rushed or I have to jump on a call or I don't get the time to do it or I do it in the car, like it just feels like there's something missing.
Yeah.
Because I've added that element of meaning to it, you know, and I've come to rely on it. And that's also something that helps define a ritual, is something that like you almost can't live without, right? It becomes like a part of you. And when something, you know, I'm not a coffee drinker, but I know a lot of people are like, I can't live without my coffee in the morning, right? And so it's like, okay, well, that becomes a part of you. So that's a really good example of something that you can turn into a ritual, right? Because it's something that you already really rely on. And then what would it be like to just make it a little bit more special?
And then it seems like we're mostly wrapping up. Why don't we break into groups of 4? So just like these 4, you 4, 4, 4. And if there's a little bit extra, just coming together into a small group. And just discussing this, like going through maybe the journal prompts or just talking like, I have no idea. I've never had a ritual in my life. Like just being honest with the group, but each person taking a couple minutes to just connect to each other and gain inspiration from each other. And say, like, I have this routine. I do it every day. I really think that I could add this to it. Or I'm not sure. And then have the group help you walk through your day.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that you will have about like 10 or 12 minutes here. So everybody will have, you know, like 3 or 4 minutes each. And either sharing what you wrote around like, hey, this is something that I really want to create more intentionality around. And the reason we're having you guys do this is because when you write something down, it's like 65% more likely to happen. When you say it out loud, it's 85% more likely to have it happen. And if you have somebody else hold you accountable, it's 95% more likely to happen, right? So like all of these things are scientifically proven facts. So having people like enroll in your vision, and if you were stuck on this exercise, it's like you have 3 amazing people who are able to guide you, and you can be like, well, this is what I do, and I always feel like I'm rushing, or I'm driving the kids to school, and it's like, okay, well, what if you blasted music or like did something different, right? So like honoring, taking this time to not only receive but also to
Contribute.
give and
Yeah.
contribute.
And knowing also that, again, we talked about earlier, you can change your mind at any time. Something that's not serving you now, you know, maybe later will. It's okay to put things aside and change and evolve. And now, like, I'm going to wash all that stuff. I've been doing this for 10 years. I'm ready for a shift. I have huge life shifts happening. I'm ready to just blast it out of the water and try something new. That's okay too. Like, back at square one is a beautiful place to be.
All right, guys, so find your groups. I think there's 4, 4, 4. Maybe we
Yeah,
do a group.
that's
We
4.
do a group of 3 and a group of 3 here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't we do that? You 4, 3, 3.
I just been baking in the sun, you know.
That's all.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everyone. So coming back into the bigger circle, thanking your partners. Gratitude. Thank you.
Starting to come back into the big circle.
Yeah, she probably doesn't have her phone. I'll have to do it after, but. Turn the music off, or lower it. All right, how was that? It's nice to connect in small groups, right? I love breakouts. I'm a big fan. What came up? What came up? What did you realize about what meaning you're putting on the word routine? Maybe what meaning you're putting on the word ritual? Where you can shift something? What you can let go of? I love that.
Who wants to share?
Who wants to share? And remember too, especially if it's like, and no pressure, but especially if it's something that you're deciding to do differently, again, saying it out loud, is like, I don't know, I named a crazy percentage, I think like 85% more likely to happen. So just offering that as some data.
I want to share something that she said that was profound. What you said about concentration, this may not be necessarily fully routine or ritual, but it to concentrate on one thing at a time, that you, if you're sitting there trying to do something and think of 20 different things, you exhaust yourself. And so to go through the day and do one thing at a time, focus on that, get it done, and not expend as much energy on other things while you're doing that, just, it's a way to feel more rested, and that really stuck with me.
Beautiful. So essentially talking about this gift of presence, right? When we're present. And I always think about like a computer, you know, so when we have like a million tabs open on our computer, it runs a lot slower versus when we have one tab open and you're actually able to like be more present, or like time takes on a different meaning, or you get more out of it. And like think about those times, and we actually just talked about this, you know, where time can feel like it stands still, and then other times you're like, whoa, that went by so fast. And that has so much to do with the presence and the intentionality behind it. So yeah, that's a huge part of a ritual. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Jen.
Our group talks a lot about like the importance of movement, especially in the morning. I think for a lot of us, setting ourselves up like to feel good, to feel accomplished, to feel like we've worked something out in our body. For me, I have small kids, and I'm really bad about like sleeping in until the last minute, and then it's like a stress to get out the door in the school, to go to school in the morning. So it's like, I think for me, I'm going to be more present with waking up early, moving my body in some way, because then I can ground into myself.
Exactly.
And be a better person to my kids and the rest of the world too.
So she was just saying, in case anyone can't hear, and we also were live at these cameras back there, just so you know, but it's pointed at us, don't worry. So she was just saying that their group talked a lot about movement and setting yourself up for success for the day and getting that movement done, because then it's checked off and you feel accomplished and you feel the endorphins and like get your day going. And then for someone who's a mom or a dad who maybe waits till the last minute and wakes up because you're tired, just waking up 20 minutes earlier and doing whatever that ritual is makes such a difference. I've been waking up earlier, and it's funny because it's like my husband wakes up at 5 a.m. and starts his routine, and I'm very different. I don't like waking up early, but the little bit of early, like if my kids are up at 7, I get up now at 6:25. And for me, it's like, not because he's doing it. He's doing his own thing. He has his own routine that works for him. But for me, I get to just slowly do what my body needs so that when they wake up, I'm ready for them, instead of like they wake me up, right? That energy of like being woken up to the earth, or being woken up to alerts or notifications, or looking at your phone and looking at email. Like that's the world needing something from you, children needing something, versus you declaring what you need for the day, not looking at your phone right away, doing your workout, doing your movement, having your water with lemon, taking a walk without your phone, and then like oh, all of a sudden it's like 7:45, 8, and I haven't looked at my phone yet, and my day's amazing. Why? Because I dictated what my day is going to be, not the world. Yeah. Can you talk a little louder?
Oh yeah, I have a tip for everyone that for with your phone that's like was life changing for me for like my nighttime. I like to read and not be on my phone in the morning. I like to like do breath work and meditation before I go to yoga and like not look at my phone. There's a setting in screen time called downtime where between certain hours all of your all of your apps, like you can't access them.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't even see notifications. So if you're someone who's looking to like cultivate a routine of like not being on your phone at night or in the morning, like between 9 and 6, you can literally set it so the notifications like it's like you cannot go on the app.
It blocks you, yeah.
Yeah, you put on Do Not Disturb, right? Is that
No, it's
no,
beyond
it's something
that.
else?
Intense one.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Like if you went to, it's like you can't click on
Oh, I need that.
Yeah, it's called downtime. It's in your settings.
Ask any parents what you
Yeah. Mine starts at 8 p.m. and I have to like really get in there if I want to break in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, so for night, like I feel like for me at least, I used to be like TV, phone, just like kind of, and my job is partially on Instagram, so it's hard, but having that forcing function has almost forced me to cultivate a new ritual of like knowing that at 9 p.m. that is done.
Lights
and
out.
moving more towards like reading or like having my herbal tea or whatever, and just knowing that that's like time bound. And
Well, also just to add to that, like think about the phone and how powerful it is in dictating your mood. You don't have control over what's happening in the outside world. People are having health stuff, accidents, the world, the news, your friends. She's in a bad mood. She's freaking out. He needs to talk. Your brother, your mom, the drama. All of the world is happening. So when you go into your phone, you have no idea what's in there. The world is happening. And then on top of it, you're getting dopamine hits. So it's to start out your day that way, or to have that be the last thing you look at before you try and get in your bed. No wonder we're not sleeping. No wonder we're anxious. So really dictating that, like, no, the phone doesn't, I have no notifications on my phone. I will say I'm probably one of the busiest people I know. Busy, right? I own multiple businesses. I have 3 children. I'm married. We have so much going on at any given time. I have no notifications on my phone. Not a text. I don't know if you heard earlier, my FaceTime went off. That's the slip in. If anyone wants to get a hold of me, you FaceTime me. That's the only way I don't have my ringer on ever.
Same.
If I'm looking at my phone all the time. I don't need, if I want to look at my phone, I'll look at my phone.
You can check.
You're not going to decide that I'm coming to my phone. I'm going to decide when I have 4 missed calls. See if they're okay. Oh, they are, because everyone's okay. And if not, there's nothing you could have done in that moment anyway. Like if my kid's like having an issue at home right now and gets stung by a bee, what am I doing from Malibu? So it's that control, that perception of control that you're going to be able to do something, right?
Yeah, and the reality is too, I mean, we've talked about this a lot with running businesses and having teams, and like when we're on it, it's like, it's more for us versus like, oh, I was away from my emails or my Slack or my messages for 2 hours, and they figured it out.
They figured it out.
And they figured it out even better than like I would have told them to do, you know? And so
That's my favorite, when I come back and there's like 25 Slacks and I'm like, oh, wow, that was awesome. They just worked that out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the phone is something that like gives us so much, but it's recognizing like what's the ritual you can have around the phone, right?
And use it as a tool. What do you want the phone to be? Connection, awareness,
Information,
inspiration,
knowledge. Yeah. You can, and you shared earlier about Shabbat, right?
Yeah.
And
So again, like something that we were talking about is like the idea of taking, like maybe you don't know that something's sacred to you or a ritual, but then you take it away and you realize that it is. Like it's subtle. Sometimes like with superfoods, like I have a superfood company. Sometimes you don't know how great it is for you until you take it away. So you go 6 days with like adding Green Dream to your smoothie, and then for like 3 days don't have it. And just notice how you feel, because it's so subtle. It's not caffeine. It's subtle nourishment and nutrients and energy, but on a subtle basis, right? So for me, this is a little bit bigger, but I like to turn my phone off, my everything. Like I don't go on social media from like the afternoon on Friday for Shabbat until the next day, as long as I can stretch it. So sometimes it's 24 hours, sometimes it's 36 hours, which is so amazing. And I'm so much more present to my life, my family. I'll maybe have a good cry on Friday night, take an edible, like laugh my ass off. Like I don't allow myself to have that space normally. So on Shabbat, I get to just enjoy my life as it is and stretch it out. And that ritual, when I come back to work on Monday, I am lit up.
Ready.
If I don't take off on the weekend, I feel it. And that's how you know that it's a ritual that is important to your health, to your mental health, to your physical health, to your sanity, to your loved ones, to your relationships.
Yeah.
You know, like think about if you miss a workout every day this week and it's something that you've had as a ritual for a while. How do you feel? Anxious, annoyed, frustrated. You take it out on the wrong person. It's built up energy because you're used to expending that energy and loving yourself.
My husband, who walked in with our son, who you guys will all meet, he leaves earlier than me 3 days out of the week. He has he's a dentist, which everyone gets a free cleaning. Just a little plug
He's the best.
for him. He's the best. In your gift bags, yes. So he would leave, and like when we first started dating, he would leave in the morning, and like I would hear him wake up, and I'd hear him like shower and get ready, and I would always fall back asleep, but I would hear him like wake up, get dressed, and then just leave. And I was like, what? And I was like, babe, you have to give me a kiss before you leave. Like, you need to do that. And so that's a ritual for us. And he never leaves without doing that. And it just sort of like allows me to be like, okay, he's gone. I'm going back to sleep, you know, and that's absolutely a ritual for us. Because I know, like, if for some reason he's in a huge rush and like this rarely ever happens and he doesn't, like that night I'll be like, babe, why didn't you kiss me before you left? You know, and so that's a ritual for us. That's something that's sacred. It also like marks, for me in my mind, I'm like, okay, now I can sort of go back to sleep. You know, it's like a marker similar to what I shared about being a ritual like over the holiday, you know, of like, oh, this is like, it has meaning to it, you know, and that's another thing with rituals is like we place meaning on them that are important to us, right? Which is why they can always be shifting and changing. And also notice if in your journaling or in your group, what came up for you was like a frequency around rituals, like, oh, this is a ritual because I do it every day. But that's actually not true, right? You can have a ritual that you do every month, or doing a sweat lodge, or something that you do, you know, I just fasted. It was once a year. Like, there doesn't need to be like a daily frequency or even a monthly frequency in order for it to feel sacred and have that intentionality behind it. So just kind of notice, like, if you were kind of putting that emphasis. And some rituals, like I just said, like the kiss every morning or 3 times a week, like, that it does have to happen every day, you know, to set me.
And even if someone like, you know, Monette was saying she travels a lot. So if you're someone who knows you travel a lot for work or for whatever, maybe you're a nomad, but you feel like just a little flighty because you're not able to ground down, thinking of something you can do no matter where you are in the world. So I'm not going to have my Vitamix wherever I am in the world. So I can't always have my superfood coffee exactly how I want it, right? So what is something I could do? Okay, I always have my breath. So I could do set a timer for 3 minutes and do 3 minutes of breath. I could just sit and meditate for 2 minutes, for 5 minutes. I could go for a walk. No matter where you are, you have your legs. You can walk, bundle up wherever the weather is, right? And go for a walk without your phone and just go. There's certain things you can put on music on your phone and just dance like we did up there, shake it out. That's a really great way to start the day and move energy. If you don't have time for a workout, if you're a mom and you're like, shit, I just had some weird ass dreams, I'm gonna shake it out so I don't bring that energy into my day, right? It's just like remembering we have the power within us to just
we have these tools.
Reset.
Another thing that is also from a scientific perspective tied to rituals is scent, right? So think about, like, a lot of times we'll smell something or remind us of something, a certain type of year, a memory, a tradition. And so that's also something that, like, if you have sometimes I travel with a candle that I love, and you guys are also getting an amazing candle in your gift bag, but, you know, or an essential oil, or like it can be like Palo Santo or something like that, that like reminds you, okay, I'm safe, okay, I'm great, or whatever that looks like, that when you smell it, it grounds you, because naturally scent is associated with ritual, like it just drops us in. So you can also have little tools that support you in that, similar to walking, similar to journaling, similar to the other things that Sophie described.
It needs to be resonant. So all of these rituals have to be resonant for you, for you, for you, every single person. Like me lighting a candle and lighting some incense or Palo Santo might be a sacred experience. For Sean, it might be just lighting a candle. If he doesn't have that same frequency and feeling towards it, that's not his ritual. Just because it's mine, it's resonant for me, doesn't mean it's his. So that's why this is so important. For a long time, I didn't understand like mantras or like affirmations, because it sounded so cheesy. Like, I am beautiful. I am like in the mirror. I was like, I would never say that cheesy shit. And now I have different mantras and things that work for me that feel resonant. Like things I'm actually working on, things I'm calling in, you know? And then when you look in the mirror, it's real. Then when you get up in the morning and do that thing, it's real because it's really yours. And that's really what we want you to figure out today. Does anyone have anything they want to share?
Anyone else want to share something that maybe they're cultivating, or they want to cultivate, or they're shifting from a routine to a ritual?
I think Karina brought up a really good point, because we're talking a lot about rituals to start your day and rituals to end your day. But she brought up such a good point. What do I do when shit hits the fan in the middle of my day? And I think that is such a hard shift to go to be like, okay, and then something happens, and then how do we get ourselves out of that? And she presented it to us as what do we do? And you know, we talked about movement. I think movement for a lot of us is really big. I love shaking it out. I think that feels like so cathartic and amazing. But if anyone else, I think other like good ways to kind of cold showers, cold showers.
I usually either do like, it's kind of weird because I'm not big, I like hiking, but I do yoga in the morning, so during the week now sometimes I either like walk down to the beach early evening or like go on a short walk or like an early evening hike, and it's just like when the day is so stressful, it like allows for a little bit of like a mental relief, and like I don't put podcasts, I don't put music, I don't put anything, I just like literally walk through Venice and just like look around, and it just lets me like if I have a stressful day, like really allows me to decompress instead of just like sitting at home and cooking dinner.
You know what else is really nice? Stripping away everything and just being silent. Like as someone who is just constantly around people, things, babies, energy, giving, receiving, like it's just, my life is so full. I'll drive in the car and just not turn on any music, any podcast, and it is so nice to just be with myself, drive in my car, and it's silence. So sometimes it's the matter of like stripping it all away, especially when shit hits the fan, like you said. What do I do? The question was, what do I do when shit hits the fan in the middle of the day? Great, morning routine, set yourself up for success. Great, end of the day, closure. What about in the middle of the day when shit hits the fan?
Yeah, and I think what's also important to remember is often shit hits the fan when we don't have space. Because when we don't have space, or we said our cup is depleted, then that's when things feel really overwhelming and we feel under-resourced. You know, we can't think of what the right answer is or what we should do because we're tapped, we're stretched.
Or maybe we didn't do our morning routine. Maybe we didn't get up a little bit earlier to love on ourselves. Maybe we didn't meditate for 4 minutes. Like, we don't have to overthink these things. You have to take care of yourself no matter what you are, whether you're a parent or not, whether or not you work or not.
Doesn't matter.
You have to fill up your own cup and come from that fullness to live your life. Like we talked about earlier, bringing things back to your community eventually once you've gone through the healing. Well, you have to go through the healing, completely fill up your cup, and then it's overflowing for you to then share with your community. Because it's just impossible. What are you pouring from?
Yeah.
So starting the day like that, and then throughout the day, finding those moments when you start to feel, that's where kind of intuition comes in and mindfulness is like, okay, my anxiety is increasing. I'm at like a 7. I started at a 1. I'm at a 7 now. I really don't want to get to a 10 because I know that's a panic attack, not a good story, right? Not a good place to be. When you start to feel your breath changing and things just feel so overwhelming, shut it all down. Everyone can shut everything down for 10 minutes. Turn off your computer, close your computer, turn off your phone, go for a walk, sit still, lay in your bed. I go to my bed all the time throughout the day. I work from home. I just find myself in my bed, just laying on it.
Well, it's the idea of context switching. So we're getting into emotional intelligence, right? Like our body is giving us information all the time. And so like, when you're at a 3 on the anxiety scale versus a 7 versus a 10, right? Like your body is telling you, it's like you have shortened breath, maybe your palms are sweating, you feel it in your stomach, in your head, you feel it, right? So it's like, we need to have an ability to slow down to feel that. And so much of us spend so much time in our heads all the time. How can I think my way out of this? When taking that pause allows you to get into your body to tune in. Well, hey, what's causing me to feel this way? That's the first question. Second question is, how can I shift out of it, right? So like, I love the idea of a cold shower, like washing it away, right? Like, and anything like natural or in nature, so going out for a walk, getting that quiet time, like those are things that help us shift out, and give us a little bit more insight, give us that ability to recharge slightly. And so, we're talking about emphasis on rituals and like, what can you do to set yourself up? And then sometimes you don't, like you wake up past your alarm or, things happen that are out of your control. So great question back to, well, what happens when shit hits the fan in the middle of the day? Well, like there's also these tools that you can do that you can be like, okay, I'm grabbing this from my toolkit. I'm going to sit with my journal. I'm going to sit with a cup of tea. I'm going to grab some water. I'm going to take a cold shower. I'm going to get outside and go for a walk. I'm going to sit in silence for 5 minutes.
There's always enough time for that. And we make up these ideas that there's not. There's always enough time for you to hit the reset button and begin again. No one's going to care if you're 10 minutes late to that thing. You are the most important, and you have to start treating yourself that way, or no one else will.
But when you do start treating yourself that way, then everybody else does.
Yeah.
It's a huge energetic shift. And, this kind of brings us back to like what we do have control over, right? Which is like, how are we treating ourselves? How are we speaking to ourselves? And then it creates, I spoke about at the beginning of the day, this ripple effect. And that's what it does. It creates that really powerful energetic shift and ripple effect when you're honoring your time and you're setting sacred rituals that set you up for success, joy, peace, all of those things.
Is anyone struggling with anything here? Anyone struggling with like what to transition into, what to call in, what to let go of?
How to do it,
what to do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think my struggle is that I love the idea of a ritual, but I sort of is knowing that I can't stick with it. I'm trying to get over the whole idea that you have to do it every day.
Right, the frequency.
Yeah, the frequency.
Just knowing that it's okay if it happens twice a week.
I love not doing things. I love the days when I don't have to do anything. I'm like, haha, I don't have to do anything today. And I feel great because then the next day I love the thing I'm doing. Right? Like it's giving yourself permission, like you said, to completely take the day off. It's a choice to be like, today I want and I get to do my ritual. But only if it feels natural and good to you. And after a while, after you start doing those rituals, you're probably going to crave it more often. Because you won't have it some days that you decide not to do it. But then it's a choice instead of, I have to do this. Yeah. Which is what a routine feels like. Yeah.
I think like just the 80-20, like I talked about this in my book actually, just with food, with routines, with anything, like the 80-20 or the 70-30 or the 60-40, like just like not knowing that perfection is impossible and like you can't, it shouldn't be this all or nothing thing. It should be like when I can, I will.
Yeah.
And that's like doing your best, you know?
Yeah. So she said like the 80-20 rule or the 70-30 rule and just giving yourself grace and knowing that there is no perfect. We're not going to do something 100% of the time. None of us are. You're full of shit if you say you're going to. You're not going to do anything 100% of the time. You're not going to wake up every day and do the same thing for the rest of your life. You're just not, because we're human.
And we're always evolving and growing. We're like nature, right? It's like sometimes it's in bloom. Sometimes we're, again, like the bees are creating honey and then they're pollinating the flowers. Like there's different seasons. But there's also a reprogramming that comes with that. You know, can a ritual be sacred, but I don't have to do it every day? No, it's just something I love to do. You know, like at Christmas time, there's rituals. You know, like I think holidays are big signals of those. You wouldn't want to have Christmas every day. That would like take the specialness actually away from it. Right? So what if the specialness of the ritual is the infrequency of it? You know, that's a different way of looking at it.
And maybe you do that. Maybe you start with one day of something. Like my Shabbat is sometimes just 12 hours. But my phone is gone. And it's so nice. But if I did that every day, I'd be kind of lost, bored, disconnected. So finding what works for you, and if it's the everyday thing that's intimidating, starting with one day, and then 3 days a week. And then if you want to, growing from there, but maybe that's enough. Anyone else want to share anything before we close up this workshop? This is for you. So,
I actually have a practice that might be too intense for something like that, but it's called the triple flame, where it's every 3 hours you pause for 3 minutes.
Beautiful.
And, you know, sometimes you're sitting at your desk and you can fully like close your eyes and have those 3 minutes. Maybe you're driving the car and it's just a reminder to bring intentionality and presence to that for 3 minutes. Even if you're on a meeting, you're probably not speaking on the meeting. You can find those 3 minutes just to like recapture that for yourself. But the way that I make it work is I'm never going to remember to do that myself. So I use my phone alarm and I'll pick an audio file and set it as the alarm. So it might be whether it's a meaningful song for you, or I have some 3 minute, they're kind of like meditation files. Like the first minute's kind of breathing, the second minute's kind of awareness, and then the third's expansion.
Beautiful.
But it just goes on. You know, you can set it for the middle of the day if you're having a crazy day, right? Like at 12 p.m., it just comes on my phone. If I really can't do it, I can always hit stop. But I'll do it more often than I won't. It's one way that the phone technology actually helps.
Right.
using it as a tool. Yeah.
I love that.
So he was saying the triple flame rule.
Triple flame.
Triple
Triple
flame.
flame.
So every 3 hours for 3 minutes, taking a moment to yourself to be present, to be aware, to be mindful, and then whatever comes through. So it could be breath work, it could be mindfulness, it could be just closing your eyes. And if you're in the car, then it's just maybe turning the music off, the radio, the news, and just being with yourself for 3 minutes. And that can, what that does over and over again, we've talked about space and spaciousness. A lot of times we feel like we don't have any space, but we have to create it.
It actually slows
Slows
your
down
day
time.
Your day feels like it's longer. For those, like, maybe it's 12 minutes in the day, and it's like 4 hours longer.
Yeah, yeah. It's how it works.
It's like that. You can bend time. You really can, right? By inserting these things. And I share this all the time, but I remember I was at a retreat, or I was at something, like a talk with Deepak Chopra, and someone in the audience was like, how often should I meditate? And he's like, well, once a day for 20 minutes. And they're like, oh, well, I don't have time for that. And he's like, well, you should do it twice a day then. You know, and it's true, right? Because it's like, well, actually, again, it's like the computer tabs, right? We slow down, we kind of like speed up in a way, right? We create more presence, we create more time, we create more awareness. And, you know, that's the exciting thing about all this stuff. That's what like is so powerful, because there's so much in this world that we can't control. But if you're traveling, if you're busy, if you're not feeling well, if like there's COVID, all these things, like the thing that you can come back to is yourself, your reactions to things, the rituals you're putting into place, you know, the tools you're using, the people you're surrounding yourself with. And that's like the most empowering thing ever, right? Because we can get to those points of like burnout and overwhelm, and then it's like, okay, how do I reset? What are my rituals? What are the things that makes me feel like me? And maybe they're not that anymore. You know, maybe they're shifting and changing, and that's why, like, you know, we like having these retreats every quarter, because we like, it's almost
Check in
like,
with ourselves.
yeah, it's a check-in, and it's also like, well, yeah, we're always changing. You know, we're always changing, and like now having a baby, you see, like I look at pictures of him from last week, and he already is like totally different. But we're the same. You know, like maybe we don't look that different, or it's not that noticeable, but our cells are regenerating, you know, we're evolving and growing, we're learning, we're expanding continuously, which means that the things that fill us up also change. And so checking in with yourself, having these conversations, talking to other people, writing about it, like all of these things, it's like you wouldn't get in the car without knowing where you were going, sort of thing. And you can sometimes and be like, okay, this is fun, and we're going to like go on a joyride.
Yeah.
But I think it, again, creates a little bit of like that container of like, okay, these are the things that are important to me. These are the things that set me up for success. I'm going to make sure that I'm incorporating them, you know? And when they no longer do that, it's an opportunity to reset.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, oh, I'm feeling stuck, because that's the flip side of it, right? Is like, there's something wrong with me. I'm feeling stuck. I can't get out of this, versus like, the things that inspired me don't inspire me anymore. Right? Like I'm shifting and growing.
Back to the drawing board.
That's the nature of life. We grow or we die. Right? So like notice how that's the flip side. Like, oh, I'm just looking for new things to inspire me, versus I'm feeling stuck. Right? And just noticing like, okay, where can I take my power back with myself? Which is what I did this morning. Like I said, you know, we're like, have a baby, we're looking to move. There's like just a million things going on. And I like woke up this morning and was like, okay, like how lucky are we that we get to do this, you know? And it doesn't mean that like it's going to be any easier, but it's like, this is a choice.
Perspective flip. Perspective is everything. Any questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mostly just like, so, you know, as we go forward with these rituals and making changes, how do you feel that others can, like, so, like a partner or a friend or kids now, like, I want to make these changes, and I'm not I don't want to be that person that I was. Like, how can I have them help me, you know?
Yeah.
Like, be
Ask for
supportive
help.
of that.
Yeah, so she asked, what do I do with like partners and friends and relationships and boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands, kids? If I want to make these changes and I want them to support me, everyone wants to support you. Everyone wants to support me, but they don't know what to do because I've got it all figured out. You know?
So there's that, and there's also like naturally in our mind from a neural pathway perspective, we don't want to change because it's more work for our brain, right? Think about like driving to work or somewhere that you go on a daily basis. You probably take the same route because you don't have to think about it. You just do it on autopilot. And if you're deciding you want to take a different route, you have to pay more attention. And then that becomes the habit. But at first, you're creating and forming new neural pathways. So ultimately, there may be some friction. Like your kids, you know, if you're like, mommy takes 30 minutes or 20 minutes of quiet time in the morning, they may be like, well, I'm used to waking up and running into your room. And so
Think about friction. What happens with friction?
Oh my gosh.
What's created with friction?
Okay, got it.
Diamonds?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
The most beautiful things come from friction. Just allowing the friction in it to be a little uncomfortable. Like, nope, mommy's not doing that right now. Like, I meditate. My kids are around me. I put my earbuds in. I'm like, you can join me if you want to, but I sit. I lay down in bed. They can crawl all over me. I am indestructible because I'm doing that. And now they're just used to it.
Well, it's setting a boundary too, right? And so that's what today is all about, is like us reminding you and giving you permission that like you setting the boundaries is key. And also, by the way, no one else is going to do it for you. Like your kids aren't going to come to you and be like, mommy, I think you should use this 20 minutes
It's
to
your
yourself
time for
in the
meditation
morning.
now.
It's your time to meditate. And they may, you may be at the next retreat and be like, oh, my kids come and meditate and they rely on it now and they know not to bother me during that time because you've set that boundary, and that will become the new ritual, and that will become the new normal, and that will become the new habit. But the beginning part is going to
Uncomfortable.
It's
meant
gonna
to
be uncomfortable.
It's meant to be. I wouldn't be sitting here right now if my life wasn't uncomfortable 1,000 times over.
Same.
I wouldn't
Same.
be where I am. Like the amount of discomfort I've felt, you have to feel discomfort to change.
I was talking about it with Alyssa this morning. I was like, it's like a life grenade, you know, and like anytime like I've done something, it's like, okay, yeah, let's rip the Band-Aid off.
Yep.
Let's quit the job. Let's move countries. Let's, you know, start a new business. It's like, I mean, I'm like, okay, babe, to myself, like, maybe you don't have to do it all at once. Like, that feels really overwhelming. And it's not for the faint of heart, but if you're like me, then go for it. And if you're not, then more power to you, because it's a lot. But yeah, we talked about that this morning. It's like stepping outside of your comfort zone, right? And it would be easy to not have that conversation, or to be like, okay, this is what you want and that's what you're used to.
And just think about it this way. You're going to be 10% more likely for it to stick. Because as Sammy said, you're 95% more likely when you have people that hold you accountable. So those people in your house, like when I'm not eating gluten, my kids know it. Because they're like, why aren't you having the croissant? I'm like, Mommy needs to be chill on the croissants right now. And then they're like, I thought you weren't having that. I'm like,
Yeah.
you know, don't tell me what to do. My husband will be like, I thought you were closing the kitchen at 9 p.m. I'm like eating the ice cream. Like, you tell me nothing. And then it makes me think twice. I get to make my own decision. But people that love you are going to hold you accountable if you ask them to. If that's what you need, you say that. You know?
Yeah.
I was going to share that I've done a lot of that the last few years, and like expressing to people, I'm sorry I can't talk about this right now. So like I could have some peace for myself, but also like telling people, I'm sorry I prioritize this now, or like that means I'm not doing this at the moment you want to. And I think for me, like I had never done that before ever. I just always said yes. And I was going to share that I had a lot of people who were close to me who were like, oh, we're so happy you're telling us. Like, we want to support you.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, can we make this easier for you somehow? Or my sister's like, oh, I didn't know that you cared about that. You literally never said anything in 35 years. So I was like, oh, it really bothers me. She was like, great, I won't do it anymore. Great. So I was going to like say encouragement to like those people around you. I had like a surprisingly supportive response.
And the people that love you, this is what I've learned, the people that really love you and want you in their lives will support you through the changes and they want you to be your biggest expansive version of you. If someone's resistant and they're like, why are you doing that? Why are you and judging you for wanting to change? They're not your people.
Yeah.
Sorry to say, they're just not.
Yeah.
The people who love you want you to be your best. And even when you make the mistakes, like when I took my husband back, my own family was like, once a cheater, always a cheater. Like all the stupid shit that people say. You're marrying your father. Like all this stuff. And I'm like, shit, everyone in my life is going to hate my husband. And then I realized, like, if I'm happy, if I'm truly happy and we do the work and we show up every day, the people who really love me are going to see the shift in me, see this person I love, see it through they just want me happy. They're protecting me. So if I say he's the bad guy, then he's the bad guy. If I show them he's the good guy, we're doing it together. So showing people, the people that love you want to love you. They want to support you, but not if you don't give them an opportunity to and just act like you have it all together all the time.
And think about yourself. Like, we're naturally altruistic by nature. We want to help, right? Which is why I say, like, say it out loud, enroll other people in your vision. And like, who here today heard someone else share and they were like, oh yeah, I relate to that. I relate to what they said, right? And remember at the beginning of the day, I said, like, we're all also here for each other. We're mirrors. We're not, this is no accident. I don't believe in coincidences ever. And so, like, you know, exactly what you said. It's like so many people in your life are like, oh, cool, amazing. We didn't know that. Or, you know, I know when, like, I had a friend who would put up really strong boundaries around her time. She'd be like, no, I'm not available that night. I'm, like, staying in and, like, journaling or doing a workshop or, like, just chilling by myself. And I was like, oh, you can do that? Like, you get to say no.
Yeah.
And this is like years ago, and it always stuck out to me because by her doing that, although like I was like, oh, but I wanted to hang out, it gave me permission to then, if I didn't want to do something, that I could then say no, you know? And so like honoring the fact that like there may be that friction, but then like maybe your sister or your kids or your partner are like, oh, like she put a really strong boundary on that time. Like, I can do that too.
Yeah.
And so you don't, like, that's what I mean about the ripple effects.
And also the reactions initially, when people are reactionary, it's their own stuff. And then in 3 months, them being like, you really inspired me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. 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 Did anyone else need support on something or want to share anything before we close up? And know that your shares is what makes this rich.
I'm going to share a few more of the things I wrote before we got here of what is a ritual. So I said an anchor, a reminder, recharges your soul, wisdom, a labor of love, a moment, presence, helps us tune into the greatest version of who we really are, connecting to source, since we said spiritual, collaborating to my deepest core values, connecting to vision, and then creating action from a true and responsible space versus one of reaction. So creating action from a true and responsible space versus one of reaction. And like stepping away from blindly following what other people do, and instead, like, that's why in yoga I have you close your eyes a lot. Like, I'm super blind, so I usually go to yoga with my glasses on so I can take them off, and then I don't see anyone else. I cannot see anyone else, especially if it's a dark room. Like, cool. Because it, you know, even though I know inherently, like, logically not to compare myself, if someone else is going into that pose, I'm like, oh, I should do that too. Or if they're right in front of me, then you want to mirror that. But maybe that's not what my body actually needs. So the same thing goes with rituals, tuning into what your body needs to know where you're going. You want to know where you're going. Have the vision of where you want to be in 6 months from now, and then let these rituals take you there. And then maybe when you get there, these rituals won't serve you anymore, and it's time to reset again. And in my phone, I have a joy list so that when I'm feeling stuck and depressed and sad and blue, I can come to the joy list and start with something small, like a cup of tea, calling a friend. So I encourage you in your own time today to just create a joy list. My joy list is long now because sometimes like the first 20 don't work because I'm not in the mood to get out of bed. I don't want to talk to anyone. So you start somewhere. And then same thing goes for this, for different rituals you can pick from. It could be 24 hours without your phone. It could be 24 hours without processed sugar. It could be 24 hours not talking to anyone else and being alone. It could be all sorts of things.
Taking a sauna, going for a swim,
nature,
going into the ocean. It's whatever
booking a retreat
resonates for you.
Yeah. But have a list that you can pull from. So when you're like, shoot, what was that thing? Oh, 3 minutes of music and shaking. Cool, I'm going to pull on that. Right?
Yeah, because it's like, when our tank is empty, like I said, it's like you forget. You're like, oh.
Or the middle of the day when you get spirally, right? It's like, well, I don't know what to do. Well, you got to list in your phone.
Oh, and it could be really simple. And I don't have to, like, go anywhere.
Turn off my phone. Number one on all lists of joy, ritual.
Shut it down. Yeah.
Overwhelm.
Take off my shoes. Like, feel my feet on the ground. You know, it can be that simple.
Hand on heart, hand on belly is a big one for me. Just like, oh, there I am.
I'm alive. Deep breaths.
Forces you then to take a breath. Yeah.
And just so, like, you guys know, like, naturally, a lot of us breathe in our chest as opposed to in our belly. So when we breathe in our chest, it's stimulating our sympathetic nervous system, which is fight or flight. So that just, like, is something that, like, evolutionary we've shifted into. So taking a deep breath stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and digest. So it could be simply the 3 flame rule, you know, three deep breaths. Oh, there I am. That's a ritual now.
And a lot of us have digestive issues. I say it with air quotes because a lot of it is air quotes. We're making it up because we're not breathing. Because we're in fight or flight. If you're in fight or flight, you're not digesting your food properly. So start to remove the stress. Remove the idea that you're too busy to take time for yourself. And you're going to start to digest your food. And there won't be any food that you can't digest well. Unless you're allergic. Different. Right? But we make up these things and then it becomes real problems. Then all of a sudden you've got Crohn's. All of a sudden you've got a digestive issue. All of a sudden it develops because our bodies are smart. They're adaptive. Like, oh, okay, we're not doing this anymore. We're not digesting food anymore. Cool. I'll reject all food. And then it becomes...
what we focus on expands, you know? And we have so many stories of that in our lives, going from, like, something really hard to shifting how we're thinking about it. I love what Alyssa shared this morning also. Like, I've done deep healing and self-work and things have shifted, right? Like, oh, I got dealt a shitty hand this round. Does that mean it has to be forever? Well, it can be if I keep choosing that, or if I choose again and I choose again, then it doesn't have to be, right? Yeah.
Food ones. Food blessings, like at night, like you're saying, intentionality is you're like making the food, even that, because you're going to sit there and you're going to eat anyway, but if you can just hold off for a minute,
Slow down.
maybe you're like, maybe it's hands-on, you can come up with your own words for it, like it doesn't have to be a religious lesson, you can come up with your own thing and change it every night. High-low buffalo, like something, what your high was for the day, what your low was, or what that something surprising was.
Yeah, I was talking about your Sophie, the 5 things of the day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And then also rose and thorn. We do
Rose
this
and
with our
thorn,
kids every day.
yeah.
My daughter begs for it.
Yeah,
If we
it's
haven't
so
done it at the
cute.
dinner table at night, she's like, rose and thorn. And we lay in bed with her, and the rose is something good that happened, and the thorn is something challenging. And she'll go on and on and on. Like, kids love that kind of stuff. So kind of like simplifying something like that keeps us accountable. Now we're connecting on a deeper level where like maybe we wouldn't have. So simple little practices like that. When we sit down to eat as a family, which is not every night, it's a few nights a week when we're lucky, that's what we do, rose and thorn. And then everyone gets to connect about what's going on in their lives. And we'll talk about things very vulnerably. Like I'll talk, like the elephant in the room, mom and dad have been in a fight. I'll be like, oh, like my thorn's fighting with Abba today and and feeling sad, but I'm happy we're better now. And then they'll ask questions, you know, like instead of just like, you know, the feeling when you were young and like your parents are fighting
pretending.
and everyone's pretending like everything's okay, but like you heard them with the door shut yelling.
Yeah.
It's not cool. Like we're all living in the same space and we're a family. Why are we not talking about that? So it allows you to, sometimes you don't know when you can bring that up, or in the car on the way to school, like, did you guys hear us fighting? I'm sorry. Like, let's talk about it. How did it make you feel? So a lot of vulnerability is offered in these little practices that take 5 minutes, a rose and a thorn.
We do it whenever we have people over for Shabbat on Friday nights. And yeah, it's like something like whenever my mom's in town, she's like, oh, great, we're doing this. And like sort of rolls her eyes because like her natural inclination is to not be vulnerable.
Surface.
You know,
Yeah.
but then she always like loves it by the end and like shares so beautifully, you know, and like even like my husband and I are both pretty deep and we love talking about that stuff. But like sometimes like he's like, you start it, you know, like because, you know, sometimes you're like, oh, does everyone else want to do this? And then it's like, it's always like my favorite part of our meal times because it's, yes, we can talk about our week and we can talk about different things that went on, but it's
Things
like
we did.
it's really like it's an opportunity for the whole table to come together, to not just have like side conversations, and like everyone's really present. And then you've also it's a reflection practice, so it's like what we're all doing today on steroids, but it's like, wait, how was my week really? Like, because things go by so fast. How was it? Oh, like this went well. That was a goal I've been reaching for a really long time, you know, like maybe, you know, next Friday I'll be like, oh, a retreat, like we were working on this for several months and like it was amazing, you know, and as opposed to just like, okay, we did the retreat, what's next? Like, okay, I have a million other things going on, you know. And then, oh, you know, I had a really hard conversation with someone and that was challenging and that made me uncomfortable, right? And just like kind of noticing. And then similar to what we're doing today, like you feel so much closer to people because it's not just like, oh, well, they look great and everything is going perfectly for them. And it's like, no, like everyone has ebbs and flows and everyone has a rose and has a thorn. And it ultimately brings us closer together.
And a gentleness to strangers. Like everyone's going through something.
Yeah.
I want to read one of my favorite quotes. It's by Cleo Wade. Remember to allow your point of view to always grow and shift. If for no other reason than because you deserve to know the world as someone who is grounded, looking up at the mountain, just as much as you deserve to stand at the top, knowing in your heart not only the view that close to heaven, but also every single view along the way. And on that note, we're going to leave all our things here, and we're going to silently walk up to the top together. Take as much time as you need up there, and then we'll come back down. So we're not talking, and we're being really mindful with the way we're stepping on the earth. You can be barefoot if you want to. And you don't need anything. You can bring your phone if you want to take a video. You can bring your journal if you want to find somewhere to pause.
Yeah, and then we'll come back here for our closing, and then we have our happy hour. And before we break off, I just want to, we have amazing gift bags for you, but I'm also going to be gifting anyone who